Thank you, Mike, and what an introduction. So I'm very glad to be here standing in front of you at a very precarious time of the day. I realize lunch is creeping up on you, some great speakers behind us. This panel, ladies and gentlemen, will be the panel that will stick to its allotted time, I hope. So I've got quite the task in front of me here. So let me just begin by congratulating everyone who's here, who is actually from Portugal, working the wineries, working in the industries, because believe it or not, in the Climate Change Performance Index of 2018, Portugal actually got to the position of number 14 out of 57. That's quite impressive. Actually, it's the #1 country in the world on policies. So think about it. In a country that actually is starting to feel the effects of climate change through coastal erosion, through high temperatures, through effects that we're all thinking about every single day, you've got a place that is precious. Yet, as we all know, climate change does not stop at the border. So every year we do this lovely low carbon economy index. Now you've heard about it, and I'm sure you've heard about it all day yesterday, you'll hear about it today. I'm just gonna throw some numbers at you. You would expect someone from PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, to talk about numbers. Well, let me just limit it to GDP growth, up somewhere globally, 3-point-something%. That's driving fuel emissions. It is driving the industries, and yet our decarbonization continues at a meager 2-point-something-6%. So while GDP is growing, fossil fuels usage is growing, we continue to plow along at those same low rates. Now, credit to everyone who's taken all the initiatives that they're currently taking, but it ain't enough. So when you look at the gap that's now opening up in this lovely slide behind me, there is now a 6.8% gap that we're seeing related to the 2% climate change that we were all looking for till the end of this century. If we don't get to the 6.8, you can just do away with the lovely statistics that we came up in Paris. Now, is that a scary message? Is that a message of heart? Is that a message of passion? Ladies and gentlemen, I'll put to you, it's the facts. I know some in this world negate those facts, but they are the facts. So what does that actually mean to you? To you as people who run entities, and whether it's the wineries, whether it's the corporations that act across the globe, it actually means that your risk profiles are changing. So from a Dutch guy, I should say from a Dutch bank to a Dutch guy, listen to the wisdom, because that wisdom is actually telling you that everything you see on that slide, particularly as it talks about risks, is real. No matter how big or small your company is, no matter what sector you're in, we are continuing dialogues now at every single level of the strategic implementations at our clients. So when we talk about the physical risks that we're now experiencing, you all know what the physical risks are. There's acute risks, there's chronic risks that you're now facing. The question is, we can all talk about these risks until we see blue in the face. But do you actually translate that into what we call transition risks? So as you talk about your profiles of your companies, and again, particularly related to winery, because it is such a long-term business. This is not a business that turns around in the short term. It is a business, as we've heard all day, and as you know much better than I do, that takes into consideration the long-term effects. So as you do that, do you actually talk about reputation risks? Do you consider your brand risks from the effects of a microburst in your particular area of hail, destroying your crops, destroying the potential of the next 4 years? Do you then consider what that reputational risk actually does to you? Do you actually think about some of the technology risks that you're running? As I've talked to actually many growers who are now starting that transitional phase, and we heard about it this morning, from a relatively low-tech environment to a high-tech environment. What does that mean? How do you make sure you understand what technology is able to give you? And last but by no means least, because people don't like to talk about it, but the policy and the legal risks. It was interesting how you ended your presentation, and we all laughed. It's a great end to a presentation. There is a legal risks, not just to us here on stage. There's legal risks to you as you go about your business. There is a reason why the Financial Statement Board actually came to the conclusion that climate change is now a material risk for financial stability. Now, many of you in the audience would sit there and go, yeah, that's for the G20. That's not us. Every client we talk to today is starting to think about the model you see in front of you. Now, for many of you, again, it may seem like something that others do because it doesn't pertain to your business. But I put to you, and certainly in an environment such as winery, and then more specifically in Portugal, which the thing I find fascinating about winery in Portugal is there's actually quite a bit of microclimates that actually occur here. And therefore, every single region will have a different way of analyzing their business, analyzing the future, and actually start to think about what does risk management actually mean. We talk about metrics and targets all the time, but as you think about exceptional companies in the agricultural environment, specifically into winery, you know what creates an exceptional company. It is a company that actually thinks about risk management on the one hand, given the profile that I've just talked about, and the translation of that into all the metrics you use. Now, there's going to be others that will be interested in how you do this. And that's why increasingly governance and how you manage a significant risk or a material risk becomes relevant. So when you think about the information you're putting out in the markets, particularly for those of you, and probably all of you, exporting, increasingly, as many of our clients face today, and in South Africa, we've just completed a study on the wineries more specifically. Actually, the study is not that recent, but it came through loud and clear. You're being asked on what you do and why you do it. And that sits within the governance that you not only disclose, because a lot of people would say, yeah, that's just disclosure. Put that in my annual accounts, who cares? No, because people actually read that part of whatever you're putting out. And they need to understand, your customers need to understand how you acquit yourself of climate change as a material risk. So let me just end this very minor presentation by thinking about the effects as you go back yesterday, go back to this morning, translate that into the winery. We can all think about these aspects of the winery business here in Portugal. Don't forget, while all of this is true, that it all interacts with an environment. I started this presentation with climate change does not end at the border. So no matter how well Portugal is doing, we have a collective responsibility to echo the point here. You all get it in this room. I would put to you, you all get it, I'm sure. But if we were to analyze the way you are dealing with the various risks and risk profiles that are now becoming very much a priority for everyone we do, including PwC, including the way we look at risk and how we acquit ourselves of our responsibilities, I think there's a whole lot to be gained. So let me just echo the word on economics and efficiency here. There is a need for action, and it's not because the tools aren't there or the investments aren't there or the knowledge is not there. It's because if we don't make progress, it's because we're not taking the action. So thank you for the attention. I think we're now up to 32 minutes, if I'm correct. And that brings us very close to our next speakers and all the other lovely events. Thank you.